E. Have you ever thought you knew exactly how a holiday would go, only for everything to fall apart in ways you couldn't have imagined? That's exactly what happened to me when my cousin came over for the holiday. The moment he walked through that door, everything changed. It wasn't supposed to happen. I wasn't supposed to feel what I felt. But there he was, standing in front of me, smiling in that way that made everything around me disappear. And when I tell you what happened next, what he did to me, you might not believe it. You might think I'm crazy, but I promise you it's real. And you need to hear it. I was married, of course. Happy, or so I thought. I had a good life. A life most people would envy. But sometimes life throws you a curveball, and you're too blindsided to even see it coming. I'd always known my cousin. We grew up together, spent holidays playing, laughing, fighting over the last slice of pizza, but it was always innocent, nothing more than family love. Or so I thought. The first night he came over was just like any other family gathering. We were all together, sitting around the dining table. My husband, my aunt, uncle, and cousins. The laughter. The smell of freshly cooked food. The chatter of everyday life. I should have been happy. I was happy. But then he walked into the room. He was tall, with dark eyes that always seemed to hold a secret. His smile? It was irresistible, but I never let myself think anything of it. He was family, just family. But that night, something shifted. I don't know if it was the way his eyes lingered on me longer than they should have, or the way his voice sounded just a little too deep when he said my name. It was subtle at first, easy to dismiss. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. Something was happening. It wasn't until after dinner, when the house had quieted down, and we were all relaxing in the living room, that I felt it more clearly. The touch, a brush of his hand on mine. At first I thought maybe it was accidental. Maybe he just bumped into me in the crowded room. But when his fingers brushed against mine again, and his eyes locked with mine for just a moment too long, I realized I wasn't imagining it. There was something happening between us. I tried to convince myself it was nothing, that I was just being paranoid, but the way he looked at me, the way the air around us felt thick and heavy, was undeniable. And when we ended up alone in the kitchen, things really started to shift. I was doing the dishes, half avoiding him. I couldn't look him in the eye, afraid of what I might see. But then, there he was, standing in the doorway, watching me. Not in a normal, casual way. No, this was different. Need some help? He asked, his voice low, almost seductive. I felt a wave of heat spread through my body, and I hated myself for it. Why was I reacting this way? He was my cousin. I'm fine, I muttered, but he didn't move. He stepped closer, his presence pulling me in, the space between us narrowing with every passing second. I should have said something. I should have stepped away. But instead, I let him get closer. What's wrong? He asked softly, his hand now brushing against my arm, sending a shiver down my spine. I don't know what you mean, I stammered, my breath coming a little too fast. But he didn't back off. Instead, he reached up, tucking a stray piece of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering on my skin. And that's when everything changed. The room felt like it was closing in on me. My thoughts were scattered and I couldn't focus. All I could feel was his touch, his warmth. And for the first time, I realized I wanted more. I couldn't stop it. He leaned in, just enough for me to feel the warmth of his breath on my cheek. My heart was racing, my body was betraying me. I knew what I was about to do was wrong, so wrong, but I didn't pull away. He kissed me. It wasn't a soft, innocent kiss. It was heated, desperate, as if he had been waiting for this moment for a long time. And when I kissed him back, it was like the world around us exploded. The reality of what we were doing hit me all at once, but it was too late. I felt like I was drowning in the feeling, in the electricity between us. His hands on my body, pulling me closer. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could feel was him. But just as quickly as it started, it stopped. We pulled apart, both of us gasping for air, eyes wide in shock. What had we just done? We didn't speak. We didn't need to. The silence between us was deafening. We both knew the consequences of our actions. The guilt, the shame. But the tension? That didn't go away. The rest of the night we barely spoke. My heart was pounding in my chest. I wanted to run, to leave, to make it all go away. But I couldn't. I couldn't forget the way his lips felt against mine. The way his hands made me feel alive in a way I hadn't in so long. I tried to ignore it, to pretend like nothing had changed. But everything had. And when I found myself in his arms again, days later, alone in the quiet of the house, I knew I couldn't stop. I didn't want to stop. We never spoke about it, not once. But the attraction, the pull, was undeniable. The danger only made it feel more exciting. Every stolen glance, every touch that lingered too long. It was like a game, but a game with no winners. And then, one night, I couldn't take it anymore. I knew what was coming. He knew it too. There was no going back. And just like that, we were lost in it again. But then, everything unraveled. My husband found out. I don't even know how. Maybe it was the way I looked at him, or the way I couldn't hide my guilt. But the confrontation came, and it came fast. The disappointment in his eyes was more than I could bear. He asked me what happened, what I had done. I could barely look at him, the man I had promised myself to, the man who had trusted me. The truth spilled out of me. The kiss, the nights, everything. The regret hit me like a wave, but it was too late to take it back. And now, here I am, telling you my story. A woman who thought she had everything, but lost it all in a moment of weakness. A moment of temptation. I know you're probably judging me, and maybe you should. I don't know. But the truth is, I'll never forget what happened. The way he made me feel. The way everything changed in the blink of an eye. And now, I don't know what comes next, but I'll never be the same. As the days went by after that night, everything felt like it was shifting under my feet, like I was walking through a world that no longer made sense. The guilt gnawed at me. But there was also a strange feeling of exhilaration, a dangerous excitement I couldn't quite shake off. The lines between what was right and what was wrong had blurred completely. And I didn't know how to get back to the safety I'd known before. I wasn't supposed to want him, but every time I closed my eyes, it was him I saw. Every time I heard a door open or a footstep approach, my heart skipped a beat and I found myself searching the room for him. I couldn't help it. It was like my body was betraying me, craving something I knew was forbidden, something I should have never let myself fall into. But it wasn't just the physical attraction that haunted me. It was everything else. The tension. The electric pull that seemed to draw us closer, no matter how much I tried to avoid it. I could see it in the way he looked at me, the way his gaze would linger a second too long, the way his smile always seemed to hide something deeper. He knew what he was doing. He knew exactly how to make me feel things I shouldn't. But the more I pushed him away, the more he pulled me in. And then there was the night of the party. It was supposed to be a normal family gathering, nothing special, just another round of games, eating, and small talk. But it wasn't normal at all. Not anymore. As soon as I saw him, I knew things would escalate. His eyes met mine across the room, and I felt that familiar rush of heat, that magnetic pull that made my body ache for him. I tried to ignore it, pretending that everything was fine, but my heart was racing, my thoughts were scattered, and the only thing I could focus on was him. We ended up in the kitchen again. It wasn't planned, but somehow we found ourselves there, just the two of us, alone. And before I could even register what was happening, he was standing right in front of me. His eyes were dark, intense, as if he could see straight through me into every secret I'd been hiding. You're not acting like yourself, he said, his voice low, almost a whisper. My heart was pounding, and I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. I should have stepped back, I should have pulled away, but I didn't. I was trapped in the moment. Trapped in the feeling that we were the only two people in the world at that exact second. I'm fine, I said, my voice shaky. But the words felt empty. The truth was, I wasn't fine. I couldn't stop thinking about him, about us, and before I knew it, his lips were on mine again. This kiss was different from the first. It was deeper, more urgent. There was no hesitation now. We both knew what we wanted, and we didn't have the strength to fight it anymore. His hands moved to my waist, pulling me closer, and my body responded instinctively, pressing against him in a way that felt almost desperate. The heat between us was unbearable. And everything I had been trying to suppress, everything I had been telling myself was wrong, suddenly felt like it didn't matter. And that's when it happened. I knew it was wrong. I knew it couldn't continue like this. But in that moment, nothing else existed. No guilt, no consequences. Just him and me, caught up in something that neither of us could control. But the reality hit when we broke apart, both of us gasping for air, eyes wide with shock. We had crossed a line, and there was no going back now. But still, we didn't say anything. We couldn't. Because there was nothing left to say. We both knew. We both understood. The rest of the night was a blur. I kept my distance, but I could feel his presence, like a shadow that followed me wherever I went. We didn't speak much, but every glance we exchanged seemed to carry 1,000 unspoken words, 1,000 emotions too complicated to voice. And yet, every time we were alone, every time the room quieted and we found ourselves together again, I knew it was only a matter of time before the temptation would pull us in again. Then came the morning. I woke up feeling the weight of everything that had happened. I knew I couldn't keep pretending like it wasn't real, but what scared me more than anything was how he acted like nothing had changed. He was casual, acting like the kiss had never happened, like it had been just a fleeting moment. But I knew I couldn't let this go. The tension between us was suffocating. And I could feel it building again, stronger than ever. And that's when it hit me. I was in too deep. This wasn't just about physical attraction, it was about power, control. The undeniable pull between us that neither of us could resist. But as much as I wanted to give in, as much as I wanted to feel his touch again, I knew I couldn't. Because this would destroy everything, my marriage, my life, everything I had worked so hard to build. And so, I made a decision. I had to cut ties, completely. But even as I told myself that, even as I convinced myself it was for the best, I knew deep down that I couldn't forget what had happened. He was my cousin. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed, that everything had changed in the blink of an eye. I think about it often. Wonder what might have happened if I had let myself go, if I had followed that dangerous path to its end. But I'll never know, because I stopped it. But no matter how much I want to forget, I can't. Because the memory of those moments, of what we shared, will always be with me. A reminder of how quickly everything can change. How a single choice can alter the course of your entire life.